Look at us.
Look at us.
In the same room.
Come on!
Let's do it!
Hey guys!
What's up? Oh, yeah, that's me.
We in here!
Look at us in the same room, the same state, for the first time in a minute.
Me in Georgia.
Oh, man. Look at us doing podcasts.
So excited.
Reid and I are doing a presentation called Graceful Parenting at Campus Church tomorrow. That's why he came in. He flew in. So we picked him up at the airport yesterday. We sat in traffic for 2 hours. It was good. But we're really super excited. It's going to be really fun. One of the things we were thinking about, and Reid, you tell me what you think about this, is maybe like doing a little rebrand of the podcast towards that. Thoughts on this?
Absolutely. Instead of it being Josh and Reid are parents, because no one knows who we are, we are just going to change the title to Graceful Parenting. Hopefully that will allow more folks who happen to be scrolling on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and they are looking for just helpful ways to think about parenting, helpful orientations that they can think about. Man, like parenting is really hard. What does it look like to do this well? The name Graceful Parenting, I think, speaks a lot more to somebody on that search than Josh and Reid are parents. I
think that's great. I think it's really, really helpful and a cool thing, especially when you're thinking about searching and stuff like that. I think you'll probably see like a different like artwork, maybe some different music, maybe even a little bit different like format in general.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out how to do this. Yeah. Because what Reid and I decided to do with this podcast is just to start it. That was our whole thought process at the beginning.
That was it.
We were sending each other Marco Polos about like things we could talk about. We were talking about our kids a lot.
Yeah.
And we were like, hey, we should try to do this podcast. I even remember like a conversation that we were like, all right, so how do we do a podcast? How do we do it well? And then we were like, what? Let's not try that.
We don't know. Instead, let's just do one.
Let's just
start making stuff.
And then we'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And then we went back and forth on titles for a bit. Nothing sounded great.
Yep.
And so we just like, I'm a parent.
Yeah.
You're a parent.
Yep.
Not trying to tell other people to be parents, but we're parents.
And in the first 14 episodes, what we learned is that everything we're talking about fits underneath the umbrella of graceful parenting.
Yeah.
That has been the phrase, the idea, the core of our entire, almost like the center of gravity that's weighting all of our conversations. And so, with that in mind, it was like, well, I flew in, and I was like, Josh, tell me what you think about this. What if we just called it Graceful Parenting?
Yeah.
And it was like, hey.
That's it.
I think we finally got a title. It took us 15 episodes.
Yeah.
But look at us.
Look at us. I mean, the fact that it didn't take us 30, I feels like a win.
Hey.
You know? We're here. We're here.
Fantastic.
I like it a lot. I'm really excited about this presentation we're doing tomorrow, and always about our podcast, because I'm really excited about us being able to like flesh out the ideas around graceful parenting. Also, that's an annoying phrase that I use sometimes. That I really try to flesh out. I love the idea.
I'm just kidding.
I love the idea of graceful parenting. I think it's really, really helpful for people. It's really helpful for me. And people are actually, this is us in this room. This is the therapy room. This is Josh Thames Counseling.
Josh Thames Counseling.
This is it right here. Right here.
Get up in here.
So anyway, this is like when people are in this room with me, a lot of times they're searching for answers about like, how do I manage my kid right now? Do you know what I mean? I think this all the time. I think a lot of my friends that are in the same scenario are trying to think that often, right? Yeah. What do we do? These things are really hard and scary and overwhelming and difficult. And I think what Reid and I have not done is necessarily answered that question entirely.
Yeah.
I think we've like started with a place of like, how can we do it in a way that's like is a healthy way to approach those questions.
That's right.
Does that feel true?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're it's almost like we just found this rabbit trail that we're walking down, and it's fruitful to continue walking it.
Right.
Because it's not. We're not here giving advice or trying to tell you the 5-step plan that makes parenting palatable.
That's right.
Or easy.
Or good.
Because it doesn't exist. It's not. There's no easy way to do it. It's hard because part of me thinks it should be hard.
Yeah.
Because anything in life that's rewarding is probably going to be difficult at some level.
Yeah.
But also that it is at its core about kindness and grace. And so a
lot of times we talk in here and on together and with our friends about parenting, and we swing really like between these two pendulums of like really like full permissiveness of just like letting the child act however they want to act, and then just asking them how they feel in it. and then all the way to like authoritarian, which like you take all choice and agency away, and I am the big bad, and you will listen to me because you're afraid of me.
Right.
And we have a hard time finding like, okay, so we don't want this, and we don't want this, but like, how do we stop from swinging back and forth?
Yeah.
And the thought processes around grace-filled parenting, around Luke 15, have really helped me with my own parenting and give me language around like how to help people think about this in ways that's actually productive. I think you're right. In a lot of ways, we found grace-filled parenting. It's felt like we walked into it, and I don't think we even necessarily fully know everything it means yet.
Right.
I think we're still exploring that way, which is really fun and cool.
Definitely are.
And scary. Because like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. What are we even doing?
What are we even doing here? Yeah. But there's like a sense that like we're walking down this path.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
If somebody is new and you found this podcast because it has a new name and you're like, that sounds cool. We landed here because in our conversations we read and talked about the story of in the biblical text from Luke 15 that we often call the prodigal son, where a father has two sons. One of them says, I want all of my inheritance now. I'm going to go and, like, I don't care. I'm going. He goes and he squanders it all, wastes it all. Maybe you've heard this story before. And in his exploration, he ends up broke, alone, living with the pigs, and jealous of the fact that the pigs have food to eat. And he finally realizes, well, I can just go home and work for my dad, if nothing else. I'll just go home and I'll just beg that he'll let me just work for you. And in the story, this is a parable of Jesus. In the story, the son is coming back up the walkway, back up the road, back up to his house. And it says, while he was still a long way off, the father sees him. And in a dead sprint, he runs from the house to meet his son, to embrace him, to welcome him home. And he says, give him the family ring, give him new sandals for his feet, and give him a coat to wear. And we have to throw a party. This son of mine that I thought was dead is alive, and he's home. And it's usually where we stop telling the story. And we're like, isn't that so cool that God still loves you even when you act like crazy? But there's actually a second son in the story who has been in the field, consistently working his tail off every day, doing his best for the family, upholding all of the ideals, being the golden child, essentially. And he has been on the field working, and he learns your brother came home from somebody in the field. And he gets mad. Like, he's just so mad. And he's walking up, and he's like, I'm not going to the party. And his dad comes out of the party to meet him. And in this conversation, the father is just as kind to the older brother as he was to the younger brother, and is begging him, son, everything I have is yours. You're always with me. And your brother, who I thought was dead, is alive, and we have to throw a party. Will you please come into the party? And in that amazing parable, our imagination was just caught with, what does that show us about parenting? What is that showing us about how to love well?
Because I think one of the things I'd heard that story so often when I was growing up, and in so many different ways. Like the Christian story in the Christian way was like a part of my orientation growing up, but I don't think I had ever really thought about the fact of looking through this through the father's eyes. Right? Like, the whole point of those stories had always been talked to me about which son are you, and how do you respond to this, what should we, yada, yada, and your sin, and how you respond to people who, and grace and all that kind of stuff. And at the very, like, we've missed the fact that story is about a parent.
Yeah.
That's the foundational part of it. Right?
It's like, the core.
Right. Like, he is actually, this is how, this is a parenting story. And I think one of the ways that helps me orient myself towards this parable, which, by the way, I think there's so many cool angles to look at it, and so many, it just lights up. Also, just all of Luke 15. There's 2 more stories that Jesus tells that are just incredible. Yep. I think one of the things that it gets me excited about it is this is how Jesus is telling us that we can see God, and more specifically, how God sees us.
That's right.
Right? Is the beginning, like, hey, I want to make sure there's a lot of other things out here to know, but this is what I want you to understand about how you can see God and how God sees you. Yeah. And so if we can understand that through like the eyes of parenting, like how we can approach parenting this way, like how much can that begin to change the way that we approach really, really hard moments? That's one of the things about graceful parenting that I think is really exciting, is that we're not trying to tell you like all kids are like this, so you should do this, or here's a strategy that you can help have them like eat your vegetables or whatever. It's about this. parenting is really easy when your kid is really fun and really life-giving when your kid is killing it, when they're making good grades and they're eating their vegetables and they're being really respectful and like they're doing, they're hitting home runs on the baseball field, like whatever it is, right? Like that's really fun. But when the rubber meets the road and parts that's really, really difficult is when the kids are not that, which of course they're not because they're kids and they're humans, right?
Yeah.
Like they're just like it's so hard to be a kid sometimes and they're really struggling. How do I, as a parent, deal with really, really poor choices, really disrespectful talk, really overwhelmingly hard moments with kids? Yeah. This begins to give a framework for that, which is really exciting. I think cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And the thing that I've heard Josh say a bunch of times in our first 14 episodes is one of the hallmarks, I think, of graceful parenting is that there's nothing that our children can do to no longer belong with us. And that in that story, what we learn... One of the things we learn, there's a lot of things to learn, and it's a endless well because it's a parable. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to continually churn up within you different thoughts, different emotions, different feelings, different ways of approaching it. It's supposed to expand your mind and your heart a little bit. One of the things that churns up is that father never changes, or that son. There's never a time where that son doesn't belong to that father, either of the sons.
Sure.
And for that father, his decisions are no longer made from fear. Maybe not no longer. His decisions aren't coming from fear on behalf of his sons. His decisions are rooted in something deeper than the reactionary almost thing of I'm freaking out because my kid is making bad decisions, which makes sense to freak out.
Right. I think the crazy thing, what the beautiful thing about the story and why Jesus is so good at telling these stories is because he creates a scenario where all humans would feel tremendous amounts of fear.
Yeah.
If you are a parent and your child is making these choices, fear would overwhelm anybody. Right? It is so scary for have your kid to do this because they are going to be hurt by it. And on the way, they're also insulting you and hurting you as they do it. So there's not just fear, there's also hurt and pain that the child is demanding you take from them. Right? Like it's just, there's so much here that the thought process around the human, the response here could be fear and pain thrown back towards the kid. And you can imagine all the different ways that could be, right? The resentment, the frustration, what you have to do to get back in my good graces, how you can, how you've hurt us so bad, or you need to see all these things and understand all of that. And all of that is rejected in the story. And I think what Jesus is saying, I think the essence of the story, as you were saying, is that, oh no, there are never choices that put in peril your belonging to me, ever. Your choices put lots in peril. There lots opportunities and relationships and money and freedom. I don't know. There's a ton that we have to talk about your choices could put in peril. But what is never, ever, ever in peril is your belonging to me. You are mine, and that will always be. Yeah. And so then we can start from there. That's right. And then we'll manage the next thing from that. And I think if we can have that as an orientation and then be able to communicate that to our kids. Yeah. Man, that's could change some things.
Yeah. A way to think of it, there's no doghouse.
Yeah.
You're never in the doghouse. There's no groveling to get back in. The younger son thinks he's going to have to grovel. He prepares a whole story, a whole speech to give to his dad. And before he can even get through it, his dad is hugging him and welcoming him home. Because there's no groveling to get back in when you screw up. And I think that for me, is the thing I wrestle with the most is I think that's the essence of grace, is that it is fully a gift handed to you. And you haven't done anything to deserve it.
Yeah.
And it's just dropped on you and lavished in love.
Yeah.
And you just get to participate from that point.
Mm-hmm. And also, one of the things I really struggle with inside of that, from my parenting, and I think with explaining this to other people, is that to me, I'm well, what about the consequences?
That's right.
Like there's these poor
But there are no
choices.
consequences.
How are there no consequences?
Yeah.
And the flip side is like that is absolutely not what we're saying.
Yeah.
There has to be boundaries and there has to be like things that happen. But the flip side, I think, is that like, what if those things were not, what if groveling was not required in the midst of the consequences? As a matter of fact, what if I, as a parent, will help hold these consequences with you? Because we're going to have to go through consequences. We have a lot of things we're going to have to manage now after really bad choices, right? We've got to figure it out. But I'm with you in this because you're mine.
That's right.
And that's the end of the story.
You have been the whole time.
The whole time you will be,
Yep.
and you have been always.
That's right.
And that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
So now we got to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right. And we're going to walk it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And it could be really hard. There are big consequences we're going to have to face, but you're always mine.
You're always mine. Yeah.
I think if those words were communicated to kids effectively, I'm not saying that necessarily kids would be thrilled in the moments to hear them, but I do think it changes the way we begin to think about who our parents are,
Yeah.
and maybe who God is.
Mm.
I think it's a whole different ballgame. I think it changes the way we think about ourselves. It changes the way how we view our inner talk comes and is talking to us. I think everything is very, very different if that's how we orient ourselves towards our kids.
That's right. Yeah. So if you're new to Graceful Parenting, welcome. We are glad you're here. You can go backwards and listen to more episodes, but we will also keep churning out new ones, diving into the depths of how good it is to know that from a place of love, I get to parent. That I don't have to parent from a place of anger or fear or anxiety even. There will be anxiety, there will be fear, and there will be anger.
Yeah.
But that beneath those things exist because they're showing up for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And that I get to, or I'm empowered to return back to the center of gravity. And in that, what I'll find, and the thing that Josh already said that it's helped him be a better parent. It helps me be a better parent specifically because when graceful parenting, or when grace is the center of gravity for my parenting, it means that when I'm the one that screws up, I feel empowered to go and repair with my child, or with my spouse if I've done done that direction too, right? Depending on your situation. But yeah, like it empowers me to go and repair because I'm well aware of how special it is to know that I belong to, and so therefore, like I get to share that and with courage and boldness to then step out into that love and extend it to my child.
Well, yeah, so much purpose and intent in it. And there's so much power, and not fear, not reaction. Yeah. I'm excited about it, man. I think this helps us reorient. It kind of feels like season 2 a little bit, like like a reset of what we're doing. Reid and I are dreamers, man. What we're not great is at details, but we're working toward that.
We're best.
We're efforting,
That's right. It's
and so we're trying to work out the details of how to do a podcast, of how to manage this new idea that we're working with. We're really excited about it. We feel in a lot of ways pulled down this path. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it, dude. I'm excited about the rebrand.
Me too.
Graceful Parent. Welcome to Graceful Parenting.
Welcome to Graceful Parenting.
We're here, baby.
Yep.